There is a story about two rocks that sat together on one side of a mountain. For century after century, they just sat there. They looked out from their spot on the hill and they wondered what was on the other side. One day, a bird flew by and perched right on top of one of the rocks. The rock said to the bird, "Tell me, little bird, what is on the other side of the mountain?" The little bird said, "There are houses and castles and rivers and oceans and cities and valleys. It's a wonderful sight." The bird flew off, and the rocks were sad, for they could never see the sight for themselves. Some years later, a little mouse came and sat on that same rock. "Tell me, mouse," said the rock, "what is on the other side of the mountain?" And the mouse said, "There is dirt and grass, there are bushes and flowers, and it's a wonderful sight." The first rock said to the second one, "That bird lied to us. The other side of the mountain is just the same as ours." And there they stayed content, for the world as they saw it was the only world that they would ever see. This is a parable, of course, on the importance of perspective. How you see the world depends very much on the angle of your own vision. The same hill, the same valley can look very different depending on whether you are a bird or a mouse. And sometimes all it takes is a change of your view to change how we see everything. This past week, all of you have had the chance to soar above the landscape of Rotary. You have seen its fields and you have seen its mountains. You have seen its rivers and you have seen its oceans. And you have seen the grandeur and you have seen its glory. You have truly been privileged. And now you will return home to your clubs, in your districts, full of excitement and ambition, with a new understanding of just what it is we have in Rotary, just what it is that Rotary allows us to be. Your task will be bringing that perspective that you have gained here back to your Rotarians at home, showing them the great world beyond their view, which they are nevertheless a part. And it is your job to show them all of that world, not only the mountains, but also the valleys. For the world of Rotary is the world it serves. It's a world of shadow and it's a world of light. It's a world of pain and it's a world of joy. It's a world of poverty and it's a world of plenty. The gift that Rotary gives us is the ability to turn one into the other. And sometimes it takes so little to achieve that. You know, a couple of months ago, I was watching a documentary film called The Human. It's a fascinating, a long series of short interviews of hundreds of people all over the world, in the wealthiest countries and in the poorest countries. And one of those interviews, which has been on my mind ever since, was with a woman in a sari, probably from my part of the world. Lined face she had, although probably not old at all. All she said was, when we have no food, we pray to God. And then, after we have prayed, we take a bag, and we take this bag and we go out. And we look for the holes where the rats live. We look in them and for the rice that the rats have left for themselves. We collect that rice and put it in the bag, and then when the bag is full, we go home. In the morning, we cook the rice. And then she smiles and she says, you know, God is very good to us. He cares for us all the time. He always finds a way to answer our prayers. He always finds a way to send us rice to eat. And when I heard her say that, I thought, we don't really understand, do we, what it is that Rotary allows us to do. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we see generous people. We see privileged people. We see people who recognize how fortunate we are. People who want to share our gifts with those who have so much less. We look at the work that we do and we see that it is an important and that it has an impact. It gives us a feeling of satisfaction and pride. What we see when we look, it's a good project, a job well done. But what the people we help see when they look at that same project, what they see is something very different. What they see is simply the answer to their prayer. The prayer of the father who had slowly gone blind, who can no longer see until Rotary comes with an eye camp to restore his sight. And of the mother who has carried a sick child on her back through the jungle to find that the clinic that has a nurse who can treat her child is because that nurse was trained by Rotary. And the girls who would have to leave school at 12 or 13 because their school had no toilets, no private place to wash. And then they find one day that the school has a new toilet block built by Rotary. And for all these people, countless hundreds of thousands, they may never know us. They may never know of anything called Rotary, but they know that their prayers have been answered and that their lives have been changed. None of us here is more than a speck in the vastness of space. Our time on this earth is so short and we feel so insignificant. But as any physicist will tell you, even a single speck has the power to change the world if it moves in the right way, in the right place, at the right time. As district governor, you will be surrounded by so many issues you cannot control. You will still be only a speck in the vastness of space. But next year, Rotary will give you all the best chance of your lives to be in the right place at the right time and to change everything. I recall the National Immunization Day we ran in my country in the early days of Polio Plus. My country was already suffering with a civil war which was going on for almost 10 years at that time. And when we spoke of polio immunization, sitting with UNICEF, sitting with the government, they said, we will do this immunization, but obviously we cannot go into the part of the country which had a civil war. I mean, that's 1/3 the country. Obviously, we were not willing to do though. So when we sat at these planning meetings of this NID, we argued against it. We said, we are not prepared to spend our money to vaccinate only some children in our country. We need to vaccinate all the children. And so the government officials were exasperated with us. So they said, so what do? We have landmines, we have shelling, we have gunfire, and we are dealing with this with these militants. How do you propose to do this? You know we can't do it, although we'd like to. So we told them, I was speaking on behalf of the Rotarians, I said, we'll stop the war. They were astonished. They probably thought that we are lunatics. And they said, they closed the file and they said, okay, you stop the war, we do the NID for the whole country. So as I walked out, my vice chair, he waited till we were out of earshot, and he looked at me and he said, okay, vice guy, how do you propose to do that? So I looked at him and I said, you know, Brian, I don't have a bloody clue. You see, the problem was not merely to establish contact with the militant leader, the most feared, the most wanted, the most sought after, and the most elusive militant leader that the world had. He was the one who masterminded the suicide racket. It was not the Taliban, it was not the Iraqis, it was not the Syrians, it was the Tigers and their leader, Prabhakaran. So in the process of contacting him, we should not get into a situation where we are thought to be having an association with him. We would be in the same position as the actor Sean Penn right now, of meeting that Mexican chap. So I can't even tell you now what we did, but working with UNICEF, we managed eventually to get our message through to him, and then we waited. A couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, a letter arrived in my office, and my secretary came rushing into office with a trembling hand. It was almost as though she was carrying a bomb. And she dropped the envelope on my table, and I picked it up, I opened it, and I saw this letter from the militant leader with a snarling tiger insignia on the top, which was his logo. And it said, "Dear Mr. Ravindran, our war is not with children. If you can get your government to stop the war, we are willing to lay down our guns for the 2 or 3 days that you ask." We had our ceasefire. We carried out the immunization throughout the country. Rotary was received with respect, with our flags all over like Red Cross. And we became the first country in Southeast Asia to become polio-free. And those days, were called days of tranquility. So that was an achievement for us. So what I want you to remember is that through Rotary, war can become peace. Through Rotary, sickness can become health. Through Rotary, the impossible can become a possibility. And because of Rotary, prayers become a reality. You have 1 year, one chance at this opportunity that Rotary has given you. So grasp it, grab it, be a gift to the world through Rotary serving humanity. Thank you.